You ready to smack this horse?
Take that, horse.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Metacast podcast. That's the podcast that explores itself, explores ourselves, and explores the self in general. My name is Ty. I'm going to be your host.
And assuming my memories aren't implants and I'm a real boy, I am Distance, your co-host.
And tonight is the Metacast movie show about Blade Runner. Okay, so Blade Runner is a 1982 science fiction movie. It's directed by Ridley Scott. The screenplay was by Hampton Fancher and David Peoples, and it's based on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick.
It stars Harrison Ford, Rutger Hauer, Sean Young, and Edward James Olmos.
The budget for this movie was $30 million with a box office take of $41.5 million.
The tomato meter rating is 90% with an audience score of 91%.
That is very certified fresh, by the way. That is
probably one of the highest ones that we've actually done on the show.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah,
bad movies I've noticed, or at least movies that people don't like.
Yeah, or like I've noticed before, very like differences in scores where either the audience is high and the critics are low, or the other way around. So it's interesting to see a movie that is high in both. But yeah, this movie, so Blade Runner takes place in a dystopian future year of 2019. It was a crazy year. Synthetic humans called replicants are used to work in off Earth colonies, but they are actually illegal here on the face of Earth. And the story follows Rick Deckard as he works to track down a group of rogue replicants. So as it says, yeah, from director Ridley Scott. I did not even know until going into this week that this is a Ridley Scott movie. I'm a huge fan of Alien. Yeah, well, like I said,
I've the Ridley Scott movie.
I've never, dude. To me, Alien is the Ridley Scott movie, but that could be a debated point. But like,
we could fight about that for hours.
But this movie somehow I never saw. I mean, I have no idea how literally it went to me being 32. I forget how old I am. I am 33. It took me being 33 years old to see this movie that was out before I was born, and I've always been a science fiction fan. So it's just strange. I have no idea how I never saw this. I have no idea how it went under my radar for so long. But with that being said, I did really enjoy it. Which is weird for me. Normally, we've talked about this before, I struggle to enjoy older movies, stuff that is dated a lot of times. It's tough for me to find appreciation in. With this, I mean, there are definitely some scenes in this that I don't think age very well, and like some stuff that's just kind of not, it loses the effect that I think. But at the same time, I still think it's great, and I think I really enjoyed it. To give it a verdict, I would have to give it a yes.
It was my idea to watch this one. I think this film kicks all the asses. One of my favorite sci-fi films. So I think that it's not just like a good sci-fi movie with a cool world and cool characters and well cast. It's a exploration of what it means to be human. It's more than just War of the Worlds or something cheesy like that. This is like a real deal film. So for me, it was always gonna be a yes.
Nice. Yeah, let's dive into some spoiler territory then. Let's get into the actual storyline.
Sure.
So yeah, this was
anyone that hasn't seen it.
Exactly. Yeah, it is kind of weird talking about like spoiling a movie that is coming up on 40 years old within the next 2 years. Yeah. So like I was saying, in the intro, there are definitely scenes that I think lose the effect of the time. Like for instance, the intro to this movie, there's a lot of very slow moving scenes with, the space, the traditional science fiction, like soundtrack in the background, and they're supposed to be like awe-inspiring scenes of showing the landscape and doing the world building, which, like you said, there is a lot of great world building in this movie. However, with that being said, when a lot of the effects at the time that were used would have looked visually striking back in 1982 don't look that visually striking now, those scenes that the whole point of them are meant to be the visual aspect, they do kind of lose that. But that doesn't, I don't think that takes away from the movie.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's some of the scenes that, especially the fact that like it's kind of weird how future cars look a whole lot like cars in the 80s. You know, that always seems to happen. And like if you watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, like the future looked a hell of a lot like the 60s.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree that there's a lot of stuff in here that like at the time was like, oh shit, they can do that in movies.
Yeah.
But now it's more like, But I think, and I'm sure you would agree, that in this parts of the film that are just classic filmmaking,
yes,
that those scenes are filmed extremely well.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And the thing that they did really well in this, so it was different in Alien. They used light in Alien also, but they did it for a completely different reason. You know, Alien was to make the alien seem, you know, scary.
Yeah. Yep.
It's essentially a sci-fi horror film.
Yeah.
But in this movie, like it's almost like I would almost call this like sci-fi noir.
Yeah. And it is kind of like the quintessential cyberpunk movie. Like I feel like this had to have in the roots started that movement. Like if you I don't think we'd have a cyberpunk game without Blade Runner existing.
You haven't watched the newer one at all, have you?
No. I haven't. No, this is my first time. Yeah, completely.
Just wait for that.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the next movie. I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed this. And I'm enjoying to see the story being developed more. And yeah, I'm a big fan so far. Yeah.
And we will not be inviting our friend Craig because he just craps all over the gauze. The gauze. That's what I'm calling Ryan Gosling.
Oh, yeah, from Drive. I forgot about that. Yeah, he doesn't like the gauze.
He does do some driving and more like flying, but he does do some in the
I don't know how you can't like the gauze though. The gauze
because you jelly.
Yeah, that might be it. That has to be it. Because the gauze is perfection, man.
Yeah, I agree, and you know, it's just whatever. I think it's the contrarian in him, but you know, it's interesting to me that you look at the movie. Part of the major reason why this film hasn't aged well for us is because it took place last year. And we know for a fact the future wasn't either as bad or as good.
Yeah, they got 1 year off. If this was 2020, they would have nailed it. But 2019 was a lot better than they showed. But
yeah, I like 2019 a lot. You know, the thing that was funny though is that the shameless Coca-Cola ad in there.
Yeah,
I have a feeling they might have taken a little bit of the monies from.
But I feel like it works both ways. Like they if that was actual product placement that they got paid for, that's awesome that it helped budget the movie, and then it also helps build the world of showing this super conglomerated environment. Yeah, I think it was great. Same thing how in Idiocracy there's the Taco Bell that takes over the world basically. I think shit like that's funny.
It's funny because it's you know, how could you have a dystopian future without Coca-Cola?
Exactly. That is the if you had Walmart and Coca-Cola running the world, that would be as dystopian as a lot of people could see it. So I think that fits well into the world. Which I do want to say the world building of this is amazing. I loved even the stuff which I would say almost silly. It reminds me almost like video game bosses, like the one dude that was with the freezing eyes, that was working in the freezer, and he had to wear this jacket with the tubes and stuff. It's not a what we would consider realistic for our world, but it's just really fucking cool. It's a neat environment that it builds that I think is really interesting.
Yeah, it's the thing for me is that it doesn't create some idealized sort of image of the future. It's very much the problems you would expect there to be. Yeah. Except I think that it was a little more the timeline in that was very for how long ago that was. It's you know, and actually no. Does this take place in the same? Because did Philip K. Dick write it in 2019 as it? Because when did he actually make the piece of work?
68. Well, yeah. So it's
so for him that was really far in the
for him it was but then I get what you're saying. So it's the film creators in 1982 were not looking at the world they were creating as like the same timeline as the world they were living in. They're creating a like dystopian future of 2019 that's like, yeah, they would have taken humanity would already have been on a very different path in 1982 than we were on to end up in where Blade Runner was, I guess. Yeah.
So if I may, I would like to take a brief moment to mention a series that I'm sure you're familiar with called Robot Chicken.
Mm-hmm.
There was one little clip on Robot Chicken of, I think it was like someone brought in a robot, like a humanoid robot for show and tell, and like in a classroom, and one of the kids in the classroom raises his hand and he goes, "Can you fuck it?" Like, what? Can you fuck it? And it just makes sense that the types of replicants you hear about in this movie are workers, soldiers, assassins, and prostitutes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because why would any human make any artificial human without thinking about doing it?
Well, I mean, I think that basically what happens is like the jobs that a lot of people don't want to do get automated. And I think that as you automate a lot of the like manual labor jobs and stuff like that, I think that sex work ends up being something in a lot of robotic stories like this that ends up being automated. So I think that like there is like, you're pointing to like a human nature almost of like you do like, of course, if you create something, like, you are going to be like, well, yeah, can I fuck it? But I do think that like it also like, I think that that's like an important like thing, the idea that they're pointing to. But I do think that it also like just it's almost by nature that like a lot of the jobs like that are what gets automated. The stuff that like necessary is like what people call low skill, which I don't think is like necessarily a correct term, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. You know, it's funny too, because I don't know that I haven't really watched this movie in a while, and I think that I might not have watched this since I saw Ex Machina.
Oh, really? Okay.
And or I just didn't think about it the last time I watched this, that the whole pleasure model, air quotes if you're just listening, it's that the whole idea seems very similar to the fact that, you know, the genius science computer dude in Ex Machina made one robot specifically for that.
Yeah.
And that you see that the robot essentially loses its shit.
Yeah. Yep.
And you know, for me, it's weird because the way that they do this movie, they put Daryl Hannah, and she was in that Splash movie where she plays a mermaid. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Which they put her in here, and who was it that actually played Rachel in this?
That was where'd my notes go? It's Sean Young.
So the casting that they did for this film, the way that they do it really fucks with you a little bit, because the people that they chose to play the replicants in the movie, you start to, you know, have this sort of real sense of like empathy for them. And it's kind of like, it makes me think like, you know, there's the whole like what makes a life kind of debate thing. And it makes me wonder like how did Pris like actually feel like doing the work that she was doing, you know, on like whatever like off-world site, essentially. Just, well, I mean, the reality is they're all slaves, and you hear the replicants in the film talk about that numerous times. They throw the word around a lot.
Yep.
But you know, I think that the by far the best cast in the entire film was Rachel. Sean Young was the perfect person for that role.
Yeah, I think she did very well.
There's something about the way that she plays it, the mannerisms, just the look, like even what the makeup artist did, and the costumes and stuff, like everything about that character to me seems like the most well thought out like cast and the most well thought out appearance and presence in the film, just because you had to make that character a very particular way, because you wanted the audience to have a connection, like really connect with that character.
Exactly. Yeah, to show the humanity of the inhuman character. Yeah.
And the thing is like even the shit that she says, like the part where she's like, "Is this testing whether I'm a replicant or a lesbian, Mr. Deckard?" Yeah, like that part was actually kind of funny.
That was a good line.
Nice quip.
It threw me off guard when you were starting to bring up a series. I assumed you were going one way, where this movie reminds me so much of it. Well, I guess I should say this series reminds me so much of this movie now, because the movie obviously came first, but I saw the series first. But Westworld, there's so much of the ideas in Westworld that are from Blade Runner. Yeah.
I haven't seen a single episode of Westworld.
Oh, really? Really?
You know, I feel like my nephew might have told me to check that out. Which, oh, by the way, sis, if you're listening, I don't know if he's allowed to watch that or not. So hopefully you're not listening.
Yeah, there's a lot of boobies in Westworld. It's quite there are quite a few.
Shit.
The whole I mean, say, like, you know, the premise of Westworld is that it's like a theme park that you go to, and all of the like people that populate it are basically replicants.
Jesus, I hope he's not fucking watching that series.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like the series is great, but like in when they take down like the system in between, like where the replicants go when they're not dressed up, you know, they're all just naked. So like there's these like back rooms where they're all just like constantly naked. So it's not like sexualized nudity, because they're just, you know, that's just kind of how they store them for their next like costume change. But it's like, you know, it's just like the way that we view nudity in America, though, it is definitely a very mature rated show.
Oh, okay. So move to Denmark.
Yeah.
And then watch it there.
But no, it is a very interesting show, though, as far as like all of the same ideas that we talk about that Ex Machina made us think about, and same in Blade Runner, which I mean, I assume all stems from Dick. Philip K. Dick, yes, the story, yes, but the idea, I mean, even, you know, in the title, the whole like, do androids dream of electric sheep, like that is just a great way of summing up that idea of like, well, yeah, what is it to be human? What is it to have a mind? What is it like when artificial intelligence is created? Is that really life? Like, does it have you know, its own? Yeah, they're interesting ideas that I think like a lot of different media does very well, and I'm impressed with Blade Runner in 1982 being based on a story from 1968 doing so well.
Yeah, because it's a lot more. I wouldn't really call this an action film at all. There's nothing about it that I would really call an action film. There's a few action scenes on the subject.
Yeah. Which even I think the action scenes are almost like not poorly done, but we'll get to that. But
okay,
but not like
to get to the action scenes. Yeah, that'll be fun.
What were you gonna say though? You were starting to talk about the action scenes.
Well, there is the oh shit! Hold on, I gotta remember this character's name. The first replicant that dies, the snake one.
Oh, yeah, I forget her name too. Oh yeah, Lee just brought up a few other in chat. Like, yeah, iRobot and Battlestar Galactica both had the same ideas. Like, yeah, I think a lot of media kicks around the same thoughts. Yeah,
the Battlestar Galactica reboot did.
Correct. Yeah,
which is interesting because that weird guy that's like sort of the cop that shows up at the end. It's too bad she won't live.
Yeah.
So
I thought that was Gaff. Wasn't that the guy that was kind of there the whole time but silent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He actually plays Adama on the Battlestar Galactica reboot.
Hold on, was that Edward James Olmos? Or was that? Yep. I thought okay. I did not know until this week that his last name was not Almost. I literally thought it was Edward James Almost, Almost. I feel like an idiot for years that like why of course a surname is not Almost.
I mean, you could have gotten it legally changed. Something. Zora, that's her name.
Okay. Okay.
What they do with the clothing in that part of the film, where she puts on like this sort of plastic transparent jacket, and like after he shoots her, the way the blood spatters and drips down that jacket, that's like some really, really interesting imagery.
Yeah.
It actually makes that scene seem a lot more like brutal. It makes it hard. It makes it a hard watch. And like, even like, it's really strange because when she dies and they roll her corpse over, she doesn't look human anymore. It's very weird.
I thought that scene was really well done because like up until that moment, you're almost supposed to view the replicants as like an enemy almost, or like the other. And then they do kind of purposely dramatize that death a lot to then all of a sudden make you realize that it's like, oh well shit, you know, it's like, yeah, they're, even though it's, you know, artificial life, it is still a sentient being that is now no longer living, because basically what we determined that their existence here was illegal. And we didn't like they didn't choose to be alive, like they don't. So it's an interesting, I love the ideas that this kicks around, because like they have a lot of application to just how societies work and interact.
Like when Tyrell says the thing about more human than human before Deckard actually meets Rachel.
Yeah. Yep. That
kind of thing was just weird. Like the way that he says it, his tone of voice, the character in general. Tyrell's just a creepy character.
Yeah.
That sort of having that sort of motto as like a slogan, but then having these sort of sentient, like living things that are now like illegal that you just think of as stuff.
Yeah.
It's just all really weird. Like the whole like what constitutes a life kind of thing. The debate. With even like abortion and things like that. It's a long conversation to have with anybody.
Yep.
But the whole idea that when, like, could you imagine if
I'm fine with up to 30th trimester abortions. I think past the 30th trimester, that would be when they're about like 9 or 10 years old, right? I think you should be able to abort children up to about 9 or 10 years old, and then after that it should be illegal. But
that's like negative lateness term.
Yeah, that's my hot take. No.
Oh man, I sometimes I think about the stuff that we say on here, and if you take tiny snippets of it completely out of context, it makes us sound like terrible people.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I always think about that too, where it's like that's obviously joking, but I don't realize like until thinking about it, it's like, yeah, you could take just a few seconds right there, and out of context, I seem like a monster.
And I mean, there's things that like I say that someone says to me later that I said, I'm like, oh, I could see how you could maybe think not so good things about that.
Yeah.
Just if you take things completely out of context.
Yeah. Well, that is an interesting thing that I've noticed just from having a show like this, where I'm able to listen back to conversations where, like, I think a lot of times, in a conversation, you feel like you either said something or heard something differently that, like, you then listen back. I was like, oh shit, yeah, that went way differently than I actually thought that it did in the moment. Or like, you're like, oh yeah, I either didn't explain that well, or like, holy shit, I totally misunderstood what they were saying. Like, either way.
But for the record, for anyone that doesn't want to take this completely out of context, we don't actually advocate murdering 9-year-olds. It was a joke.
Yes, correct. Yes, 100% correct.
I just like there. But could you just imagine if a perfect stranger told you about a memory from your childhood that you were convinced was real, that you'd never told anyone about?
Yes, yeah.
And then realized that it never happened actually to you?
That is one thing that I feel like this movie does poorly. Okay, that actually leads me to the like talking about the action scenes, but I think that it's all like pacing and creating moments in movies. Like, I feel like the scene with we just talked about her death. I forgot her name again now.
Zora.
I'm sorry. The scene with her death, I feel like the movie knew how to dramatize that very well, using slow motion, using the music and everything. Like, the editing was heavily used to make that moment feel impactful. Whereas I don't think that some of the other moments, like Rachel realizing she was a replicant for the first time during that line of questioning, was made as impactful as it should have been, possibly. And I think that it stems to like the action scenes not feeling like the pacing of like what I think current movies feel like. A lot of times when you watch like an action scene in current movies, I feel like they are just paced a lot better. The action feels more quote unquote realistic or just different. I don't know if it's necessarily the audience expectation that has changed, or I'm wondering if it has to do with the actual technology of the time, where now that everything is digital, you're able to constantly have a working edit and watch that version that, like, you could then, it's like you could be constantly knowing like, oh shit, we need to do reshoots 2 days later because we don't have that little scene that we need to make that, or that shot that we need to make that action scene flow better, versus years ago, you don't have that. You'd go into the editing room months later with all the footage, and if you realize like, oh shit, we didn't get that, then you just had to make do with what you had on the editing table. So I'm wondering if it's like, is that why, to me, when I watch some of the old movies, does pacing in certain scenes feel off or things like that, possibly just literally because of a limitation of the technology?
Yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible. I mean, there's a lot of films where you don't get the dramatic angles and things like that because of the way cameras were set up. Like,
yeah,
I'm talking like way earlier films.
Yeah,
that there wasn't the way that the camera was used and set up, and the way that filming actually occurred. Like, you didn't have the ability to have that many cameras in that many spots.
Yeah, just logistically, so, I mean, it wasn't possible. Yeah.
And I mean, it's entirely possible that, you know, you get to, because that's one thing I was thinking about too, because like the thing I thought was strange was that, well, they didn't know at the time, but there's paper photos.
Yeah.
In 2019, instead of someone finding a smartphone.
Yeah.
And I was actually thinking to myself, like, man, I remember that. Like, you took a picture, then you go get them developed, and you have to wait to see how they turned out.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was already fresh in my mind, just watching him going through paper photographs.
Yeah. What's always, I always notice that with the future movies that are, you know, from the 80s, 70s or things like that, just how analog they viewed the future to be. You know, it's like, of course they couldn't think that everything was going to be touchscreen, but it's like, it's so funny to see ships where there's all these buttons everywhere, where it's like, we know now that it would just be, no, it'd just be touchscreens everywhere. Why would you invest in these physical buttons? Like,
yeah, ain't nobody need no buttons. Just make a digitizer. Everything's fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Much cheaper spaceships, people. So it is kind of, and that might actually be one of the major reasons, and it's something that that isn't really, I guess I tend to take for granted, like the technology that we have now for filmmaking.
Yeah.
And it's something that never really occurs to me.
Well, I mean, just look how, like, I mean, literally, you know, you and I could make a Hollywood quality movie well, I'm not saying like we have the skills. I mean, like, we have access to the technology at this point. That is something that, you know, for years you had to have a massive budget to have access to, like, even just cameras and audio technology. So yeah.
Here, a more accurate way, I think, would be to say that the technology is good enough that if we made a movie, the technology would make it clear that we didn't know what we were doing.
Yes, yeah, that is the perfect way of saying that.
It would make us look bad.
But it is like, we live in a very interesting time where the layperson has access to create media that they didn't for the longest. I mean, even like music, you know what I mean? For how long you would have had to actually go to a studio and have so much money to have access to recording music, where now it's like anyone with a PC could put an album together.
Yeah, that's something that I was thinking about today. I was JP Sears. Are you familiar with him?
Mm-mm.
He does like the ultra spiritual life thing. I think he changed the name of his channel a while ago, but he's a satirist, and he makes fun of fucking everything.
Gotcha.
And one of them was how to be a fitness influencer.
Okay.
And he was like, it doesn't matter that I don't have a degree in exercise science. Like, I can teach people how to be fit.
Yeah.
I don't need to go to school for anything. And it kind of made me think about, like, you don't have to, you get a platform easy.
Yeah.
You just start a YouTube channel, start putting some shit on there.
Yeah.
It's really, really easy for us to just like get anything out there that we want to. Like, you know, I mean, if Skrillex even said something about like, man, I can write a song with a MacBook. Like, I can write a whole album in a night with a MacBook.
Yes. And that is cool that it's like the accessibility is really cool. But like you're pointing out, when you just give any idiot a platform, now all of a sudden it's like, well, then, you know, you end up with situations like the world today where misinformation is just everywhere, because you can, you know, start a YouTube rabbit hole where all of a sudden, you know, 20 videos later, you feel like you're an expert on some subject because you watched some dude's, you know, documentary that he put together in his basement. And yeah.
2 hours later, I'm a flat earther.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely like a double-edged sword. There is a great side to it, and there is also a scary side to it. Yeah, but it is just, it's very interesting to see how different it is from where we were when this movie was being made. But I'm sorry, we got off on a little bit of tangent. This all started with you talking about the moment of Rachel realizing that she was a replicant by saying, like, what if someone like, you know, actually like presented a memory that you thought was yours? That is a very jarring thing.
One thing to recognize that I kind of almost like not at odds or contrary to, but maybe in contrast to the remark about the impact being less, that I'm fairly certain that Rachel was probably engineered to not have the same degree of emotion as a normal human.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So because you can even tell kind of by the way that she talks to begin with, because you're not told that she's a replicant, even though I think the audience is fairly certain already.
Yeah. Yep.
That I think that she had to play that a certain way. Like, and maybe this is a really stupid analogy to make, but I'm going to make it anyway. It's like, you know, man, Arnold Schwarzenegger acted a little too much like a robot in Terminator.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And once again, maybe it's a stupid analogy to make, but I mean, I agree that like as an audience, as someone in the audience, you want because I forget who it was, but I feel like there was an actor talking about how he was, I don't know who it was, but he was saying it's my job to make the audience feel a certain thing.
Oh
like
yeah, I think that was Gilbert Gottfried. Or no, that was Ron Jeremy. Wasn't that Ron Jeremy? Sorry.
My face hurts. But it's the idea that it doesn't matter what you feel as or were we talking about that?
We talked about this on the Tropic Thunder episode, but I don't remember who it was that actually said that. Maybe was it Robert Downey Jr. Maybe, but
that sounds like something he would say.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what you feel; it matters what the audience does.
That sounds like something Kirk Lazarus would say. But
it really does.
Yeah.
But you're trying to elicit a response from the audience, not the other way around. So yes. I kind of see like where, as the viewer, you'd kind of want that to sort of get the kind of response. But there's just something about the actor and the way that it's played and the way that it's written that for whatever reason you just end up having a soft spot for Rachel anyway.
Yeah. And
I think that it's almost, and you almost feel that way with all the replicants because they're sort of naive.
They
seem a little childlike, and you almost want to sort of look out for them.
I mean, they are all 4-year-olds, right? Yeah.
And you know, one thing that irritated the hell out of me was the picture analysis scene.
Oh yeah, that was kind of weird. Yeah,
but at least the face at the end looked kind of pixelated, so I was like, okay, I'm not that angry about it.
Yeah, that to me, like there needed to be like a different technology. If it was like, you know, even if they didn't know what a flash drive was, but if he somehow had like a digital object that was supposed to be like a storage of information that he was then looking at, it would make sense. But it's like, yeah, when you're supposed to just have a flat image that then all of a sudden you could enhance to those crazy levels, and it seemed like he was able to even then move it like 3-dimensionally. It's like that doesn't make any sense. But I'm trying, like I'm doing my best to, like I've mentioned this before, I forget what episode we talked about this, but I try to like throw away the expectations of the movie to be consistent with my universe, and as long as the movie is consistent with its own universe, I'm okay with it. And so it's like, so situations like that where it's like that's not how a picture would work in real life. Well, it's like, okay, that's fine, but it's like as long as the movie stays consistent to itself, I can exercise my what is it called, the disbelief, suspension of disbelief or whatever. Yeah.
This means that you should probably watch movies with my girlfriend instead of me now.
You're not able to do that?
That's not how that would happen. There's no way that would be like that. Like, I mean, I didn't say Netflix and chill, okay?
Yeah. But no, like that is because I was like that for a long time, where like it would rub me the wrong way if something was just not how it was in real life. But like the way I've tried to look at it though is like that doesn't necessarily matter. It's like if they build a world where that rule stays consistent in that world, that's good enough for me. But it's when things start to change within the movie itself that then I get frustrated. It's like, all right, well now you're just being lazy.
Perhaps I will finally adopt this outlook, this methodology with films, because it makes me miserable not being that way. So there's one like weird thing about Harrison Ford that I don't know if you're gonna know what I mean when I say this. There's a part in the bar scene, where I forget the guy's name, the one he's trying to talk to, he buys him a drink.
Yeah, I forget his name too. Yeah.
There's this look that Harrison Ford makes that I call the Harrison Ford look.
Yeah, and I just all of a sudden don't know where my pants go. He makes that look and then they're just gone. Yep, I know what you're talking about. That look gets people pregnant.
It's funny because I think I had this movie fresh in my mind. I was talking to someone at work and they were like, "Oh, I got this 4K TV and blah 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 blah." I'm like, "Well, the problem with super high definition everything is because now you know how ugly Harrison Ford actually is."
Yeah. Don't you dare say that. Harrison Ford is a beautiful man.
Which isn't even true. Like everybody, like you're like, I didn't know he was so attractive. Is really what it comes down to. But he does this look like where it's like surprised, half amused, partially outraged. He does it at least 3 times in the Star Wars films that he was in. He does it in he was in the movie Sabrina that he was in. They did like a remake of that movie in the 90s.
I don't know if I ever saw that.
He does it in that too. He does it in Blade Runner. In that moment where the guy buys him the drink, he has this weird like look that he does that it's something that it's an expression I've only ever seen on that person's, like that actor's face.
We gotta in the future, if there's ever a moment like this that you want to point to, send it to me beforehand so I could have. I wish I had the frame pulled up. But it's like it's gonna take me way too long right now to find it. But like that would be great to like. I'd love to see the face that you're looking at or that you're talking about.
Yeah, I should have done that. I don't know why I didn't.
No worries.
It's funny because don't you hate it when you get drunk and then video phone a replicant that you met recently?
I've definitely done that a few times. Dude, so okay, well, hold on. We've like danced around it. We've made a long way into this episode without actually addressing the whole like the big question, which I do have to say, I'm surprised you like this movie so much with it doing the kind of open-ended thing that I know that you hate. But so is Deckard a replicant or not in your mind?
So it's a good thing I'm not a politician because I'm inconsistent as hell.
I'm fine with inconsistency.
So I feel a lot different about the end of this movie after they made the second one.
Oh, really? Okay.
But not exactly.
Do we need to put a pin in that topic until next week then maybe, or?
Well, okay, let's talk about it strictly in context of this.
Well,
film.
yeah, true. Yeah, because this, I mean, there was, what year did the next one come out? Did 2049 came out?
2017, 2018.
Okay, yeah. So there were 25 years of this movie existing, or 30. Yeah.
So, but it's like I can't go back to pre 2049. So
exactly, yeah.
But in the context of this film, I think that, and because I saw this film for the first time when I was like 8 or 9. So this is something that I may or may not have mentioned on the podcast before, but my mom's actually the reason why I like sci-fi.
Okay.
So because like I grew up watching like the old 1970s Battlestar Galactica, Star Trek: The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Babylon 5, like all that shit. By the way, if you get a chance, did you watch Babylon 5 way back?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you need to I think it's on Prime. It's so bad. And like,
I'm sure.
I didn't realize how awful it is.
Well, I rewatched all of The Next Generation like 2 years ago, and that was great to rewatch. There was a lot of cheese that I forgot.
And I watched Farscape in bits and pieces because she was always watching it at some point. So I saw this movie when I was very young. So I think that might have something to do with my sort of like, it's just a fondness from my youth kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the difference between, admittedly, like, the reason why I keep saying the things about the Rachel character when you're like, bro, I don't know, man, that scene wasn't the kind of effect I would have expected, man. Like, what's up? That's not what you actually sound like to me, but and I'm all like, dude, don't say that about Rachel. Don't you say that about my chick, dude. Because like that was maybe like my first movie character crush that I can really remember. Jessica Rabbit does not count.
Well, but in all fairness, I don't know if I've said anything like that didn't characterize how I feel, because I don't feel like that. I think she was great, and I think that like the character was done very well. I just meant that it's like I feel like that moment was supposed to be super impactful and just like, and I feel like maybe sometimes I'm like a dumb audience member that like I need things to be spelled out for me a little clearer. Whenever Zora was killed, like it made me obvious that I was supposed to feel sad about it. When it goes to slow motion and they kick in the sad music and stuff, I'm like, oh, I know that they're telling me that I'm supposed to be sad here, versus like that moment it's like they didn't do anything to tell me that this was supposed to be like a big like light bulb moment. But
and I think the major reason why I mentioned the thing about Rachel and like feeling like it was like because I know you're just talking about the way the movie was made.
Yeah.
That I felt like it was like it's I got defensive about it because like I feel so strongly about that character that something. So I did a thing in this movie, and I've always done this thing in this movie that I don't do in any other film.
Okay.
I have hope and optimism for the end of what happens in the movie.
Okay.
Because I have such a soft spot for the Rachel character and the two of them, and that Deckard is a stone cold son of a bitch, yet somehow like this person that he's supposed to be hunting and killing somehow got through to him. And I have like this sort of almost naive sense of hope at the end of the movie because I want there to be something wonderful for them at the end.
Yeah. Yep.
And as an adult, because I'm a grown up and I focus on negatives because that's just what fucking adults do.
Yep.
That's why I get so angry about other like open-ended films because also the thing that Gaff says, like, it's too bad she won't live. Not that any of us will or whatever he says.
Yeah, but then again, who does?
But then again, who does?
Yeah.
That whole thing, like, I kind of 4-year lifespan, I guess, is what he's talking about, maybe. But I don't know. But
yeah, well, I mean,
the ending just didn't really piss me off that much, and it doesn't. I think maybe if I saw this movie for the first time yesterday, then I would probably hate it.
But okay, so but I mean, but back to the question though, is like you do in your mind, is there like a what do we called it before? Like a headcanon? You know, like in your mind, is it a definite answer that he is either a replicant or he isn't, or again, pre 2049? Because I don't know if they go into that in the sequel.
So okay, I'm trying to think. Oh, this is hard. I was trying to do like a politician thing and like not answer you, but it fucking caught me.
Well, because there was a long period of your life where you saw this movie before 2049. So like even if 2049 answered that question, there had to have been
which it doesn't really exactly. It doesn't really exactly answer the question.
Okay.
But I just because I can tell you when I was very young, I never thought about it. I didn't understand like the scene where she says, "Have you ever done that test yourself?"
Yeah.
Like,
or also like the unicorn dream scene, which apparently I'm learning. I watched the version on Prime that I watched is called The Final Cut, which actually is from 2007. It's like there's like the director's cut, and then there's also this version is called The Final Cut, which most people consider to be like the like quintessential Blade Runner version. But I know that apparently reading though, I don't think that scene was in the theatrical release. So I know that there's some differences from what would have been in the original theatrical release from what I saw. But and apparently that scene is one of them that kind of speaks towards his the debate.
The version I have on disc is that's the director's cut. I had to look at it again.
Okay.
I've had it for a while, so I was like, dude, like the spine of that is bleached from the sun shining through the window.
Yeah.
That's how long I've had that shit. It's funny because like the spine of the disc looks like awful, and then the front of it looks really good. It's like, but yeah, I've actually never seen the final cut version.
I mean, I don't think there's a lot of different stuff. I just, I know as I was getting my notes together, I realized I was like, oh shit, the version that I watched may be different than like the what was considered the normal version. But yeah, but apparently though, I mean, it is like, you know, meant to be kind of a debated point or left up to the audience, at least to you make your decision of if Deckard is or isn't.
And for me, like watching it as an adult, he just never seemed like a replicant to me. There was something about him and the way that he acted and the things that he did. The fact that he gets his ass kicked, also horribly kicked. I just think that he is, despite all of his trying to be a hard ass, like slamming the door in her face and things like that, like I'll talk to him. The way that I read it is that he's a person who he has such a soft spot in him that it just took it, because okay, I guess maybe it's better for me to, because why, well, what do you think? I guess, and depending upon what you think, what are your indications of like whichever way you go?
I see that is I kind of left my mind like open, hoping that 2049 would go a little deeper into it. My initial impression from this movie, though, I think that he is supposed to be a replicant. But there's not a lot that pushes me one way or another. I think mainly like the feeling that I get is that that is supposed to be a question left in the viewer's mind, and I think the importance is the fact that that is a question more than finding the answer, because I think that like the whole important, and I think what the theme that's pointing towards is the whole like, what is a life? Does it even matter?
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what, like the way that I see the movie, and like, and you're actually going about the same place that I thought you were gonna go, and I think we're at the same place, like in our minds, because the way that I view the film is that it's essentially Rachel found this thing out about herself, and she's trying to make this point or pose this case. Well, if you're human, then what the hell makes you human and me a replicant? That I think that what happens is that, because some people read it as he fell in love with the replicant chick, so he must be a replicant himself. And for me, it's just, I just think he's actually a much more empathetic person than he seems like to begin with in the film.
I mean, or it's just character development that he through the course of the film, he realizes that replicants are more human than he originally thought, I guess.
So for me, when she says, "Have you taken this test yourself?" I think it's the implication is you're a human, but what if you failed it? Then are you? And does that make you any different than me? And how is this a gauge of whether or not something is like, there's certain ways that we try to gauge intelligence in animals.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like the way a dog interacts with a mirror somehow.
Yeah.
And some of the ways that we gauge intelligence are really stupid and very anthropocentric.
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly. They're all based on how we view intelligence, which if you're functioning as a dog in a dog's universe, why does that, like a human's mind matter at all? Yeah.
And the funny thing is this is actually one of those movies where I almost, and the major reason why I kind of avoided the question is because I actually feel like, and I'm not like upset about it, but this is somehow like fucked up the movie just a little bit for me, because I never really thought about it before.
Oh, really?
And like now that I have, like the movie's not, I don't like it as much as I did.
But there's supposed to be like it's I know that scene where she asks him that is kind of like the start to that question, but from what I'm gathering reading, and now I'm going to do more reading between this episode and the next, but from what I'm gathering, there is more in the movie that is supposed to hint one way or another and leave that as an open-ended question. It's not necessarily just her asking that. I'm not sure necessarily if there was an intention from Scott to say one way or another. I know one of the things that popped up when I was watching it on Prime, the X-ray trivia things that they come up on the screen. One of them mentioned there was like apparently major disagreements between Ford and Scott on like the script and different things that had to do with the filming and stuff. And one of them was like that Ford hated the idea that Deckard could have possibly been a replicant. So that was definitely like an idea that was kicked around in the script, and Ford was like not at all a fan of it. But yeah, I don't know. I think it is an interesting thing, but I think getting back to what we were saying though, I think the whole point is the idea of like, really it doesn't matter. I think that like even if it leaves that as a lingering question, the answer is that question doesn't matter, because it's a humanized character no matter what. Like whether or not he's human, you relate to him, you feel empathetic with him. It's yeah.
And to me, I think that the question itself, just the question is immensely more important than the answer.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of the title of a TV series that I'm in love with, Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point is who?
Yeah.
Who is the Doctor other than the Doctor exactly? And what do we really know about him? And not much really, or about them at this point. Sorry.
No.
Know about them.
Who's? Oh, never mind.
Huh?
I was going to take that in an Abbott and Costello direction, but I'm not. purposely not
first?
going to. Yeah, like third base. But the the God damn it.
I'm just glad that happened, honestly. We haven't talked about Roy at all.
Roy. Okay, how did you feel about him as a character?
I think he's too much, and I've always thought that.
Yeah,
and I hate how like blonde and Swedish and beautiful he's supposed to be. I think that they took it like a little over the top. Like it weirds me out when you take. Okay, this is weird, but would you? Okay, Roy, the actor that plays him, whose name escapes me.
It is Rutger Hauer. Rutger.
So, would you say he looks a little bit like Sting to you, the
yes.
artist?
Yes, definitely.
So Sting is cast
no, the
Dune.
wrestler.
Actually, if you put makeup on him, he would actually look a lot like him. So Sting was cast in the movie Dune, the original
Correct.
Dune movie.
True. Yes.
As Fade, who was like supposed to be this like monument of perfection.
Yeah.
And there's something about that era where like those facial features were thought of like a perfect, beautiful man somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about that I find like odd. And actually one thing I meant to say, but I wanted to go back to it. For lack of a better phrase, I would call it sexist character development.
Okay.
You notice a lot of the times that like many older movies, the women in the films are flat characters that are there to supplement the male protagonist's role.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that in some ways, many of the female characters in the film are kind of like that. Like I feel like Pris should have been a hell of a lot more complex than she was, and it makes me kind of mad that she wasn't. But I do think that the little bit of acting that oh my God, I just said her name. Daryl Hannah did was actually really, really good. And I think that they should have given her more of a chance to be something other than like a made up person doing backflips. But Roy, like
what's her name actually Daryl Hannah?
Do what?
What's her name actually Daryl Hannah?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's her.
That's crazy. Isn't that I swear that was a guy from Saturday Night Live.
Maybe it is, but no, Daryl Hannah. That's her name. It's spelled with one R, so that makes it.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, every fucking name is gender neutral. I mean, I really but Daryl Hannah. Yeah. And
I'm thinking of Daryl Hammond. He was a Saturday Night Live actor. Okay. That's why it sounded so familiar.
But when I was younger, I thought Roy was just like a really good scary villain.
Mm-hmm.
But now I think he's a little extra. But I think that there's this crisis, especially at the end. He has such a beautiful monologue too.
Yeah, which the end.
Right before he dies.
One thing that I thought, okay, this is another moment that I love the Amazon X-ray stuff, where I paused the movie and it pointed out something that I did not at all notice, but then was like, oh shit, there. Deckard does not say one single word to Roy during the entire final confrontation. It's like a 15-minute scene, and there is like, he has a monologue. He has multiple things where he's talking to, and Deckard never once says a single thing to him. It's very interesting, like the way that's done. Yeah.
But it's because with Roy, like you don't see much of him. He just seems really sinister. And at the end, they try to make him seem a bit crazy. But for me, he's just losing his shit because he's torn up about his own mortality and the lack of control he has over his own death. And for me, that's one of the themes in here that I kind of wrote down was this whole idea of God, religion, creator, and fear and resentment of death. So like if you are like someone who believes in God or you're some kind of deist of some kind, you must have some resentment about the whole death thing.
Or at least Roy, like some lingering question that for Roy, he was able to confront his creator. And once he realized there was no answer to his question, it turned to the resentment. But I do think that you're right that it's like
and gouged his eyes out.
Yeah. But I think you're right though, that anyone that has a belief like that, there has to be in their mind, like they want to ask their creator, like, well, why? Yeah. Like, why do I have limited time? Why don't I get more time? Why? Like, and if you ever were able to confront your creator and ask them that question, and literally, their answer was basically what Tyrell gave Roy, I'm sure that there would be resentment at that point.
Oh yeah, for sure. And for anybody else, it's just kind of a question. But there's two lines, like sort of beginning end, that I wanted to bring it some attention to.
Mhm.
When he's talking to the engineer that does eyes, and he says to him, "If only you could see what I've seen with your eyes."
Yeah, yeah.
And then at the end, he says,
That was a
"I've
good
seen
line.
things you people wouldn't believe."
Yeah.
And then to me, that was like the really nice, like kind of eloquent sort of monologue. But for me, this is a thing I've experienced with a few people, and not to make things too heavy, but I've buried quite a few people.
Mhm.
And I've been with a couple like relatives during their like last moments, not last moments, but their last few months on Earth.
Mhm.
And I have heard them tell me things that they like ideas and memories that they don't want to be gone.
Yes. Yep.
And like that's what Roy is doing right there, because
Yeah.
he's like, I want someone else to hear what I've seen before I go. Like I learned a story about like my aunt and uncle, like when they met way back, like in the midst of, it was some war, I can't remember which
Mhm.
one, and like that whole story that I'd never heard before,
Yep.
just a few weeks before she died. And for me, like there's just something very emotional about, especially now that I've buried as many people as I have, there's something very emotional about hearing him say that in my adult life that I
Mhm.
never felt as a young person.
Did you
And so,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry.
Well,
I was just gonna say that. No, you go ahead.
No,
It's
because
actually,
it's
yeah.
the same subject, but it's kind of like turning a corner. So yeah, go ahead
on.
if you're like, okay. Well, have you seen the movie Coco, the Pixar animated movie?
No.
It's like, so it takes the idea of like the like the Day of the Dead and like the Hispanic afterlife. It takes that idea and it turns it into this animated Pixar movie, and it uses that. Basically what happens is when you die here on Earth, you then go to this afterlife, but you only exist there for as long as someone on Earth remembers you. Whenever the last person on Earth that remembers you dies, then you die permanently in that afterlife. So the people that have created legacies and memories and people on Earth remember them for longer, they are more important in that afterlife, and they live there longer, versus the people that are forgotten are like, that's, but it's like, it's this really cool idea that like you're pointing to. It's like that is the final death. Like you die once when you physically die, but you remain in the memories of everyone that you interacted with. But then when the last person that really remembers you dies, that's when you are actually gone to the universe.
I gotta see that fucking movie.
It's good, man. Like as far as Pixar movies go, like it is very, very good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
you want to do an episode? Well, after I watch it, I can like.
Yeah, we probably should. Yeah, that's a good one to do. But what hit me the most about Roy's speech there was the line that I think he ended it with, where like all those moments will be lost in time like tears in the rain. Where I think that's like coming to that realization that everything is impermanent. Like the theme that really stood out to me was the impermanence, where it's like you cling to feeling like your life is important while you're here, and there's these you want there to be this legacy, you want there to be this the memories that you feel are important to you. It's like, well, no, we need to keep this here. But there is the Buddhist kind of like reaching nirvana idea of that everything is just going to go away, and maybe like coming to peace with that is something that's kind of important. Just realizing that it's not actually, it is fine that everything's going to go away eventually.
And it's interesting because in that whole moment that he's doing all that stuff, he does kind of like goes through the entire process right there in front of us, where he just hangs his head and he says, "Time to die."
Yeah, and it does feel like acceptance at the end, where I mean he is fighting against it, but I do think at the very end he does accept that that's the end that he has, and that's the reality of his existence. Yeah.
And it's really funny because for a character that at the beginning of the film you so clearly know, like, yep, that's the bad guy.
Yeah.
That it makes it so much more. It makes the character so much more meaningful to the audience as like something more than just a villain, and it creates such complexity. Like I love fucking movies that fuck up your moral compass. They're like my favorite. That's why I love that series You so much.
Yeah.
Because that shit will just fuck with you so bad. Because I mean, guys, it's Dan from Gossip Girl. You gotta love him. But wait a second. I mean,
which like it makes me wonder. Makes me wonder during that. I didn't really necessarily understand why Roy saved him. Like they're in this confrontation. Like he's obviously, has an interest in hurting Deckard, as well. Like he breaks, two of his fingers to pay back for what Deckard had done to I think it was for Zora and Pris, are the two the names that he names when he breaks his fingers or whatever. But But I didn't necessarily understand, other than to just pass on the ideas that he had during that monologue afterwards. Like, what was the reason to then pull him back up? He had won the confrontation, even if he's going to die afterwards. Like, yeah, I didn't really get that.
Well, I think there's two ways to read that scene, and one of them is exactly what you just said. That's or at least what I think. That it was to keep him alive so he could pass something on and have himself live. But I think there was maybe just a brief moment right then at that moment where Roy had to make a decision, and I think that at least what I think is, and I hope you may or may not agree, but I think that he realized that Deckard dying wasn't going to change anything.
Yeah.
That his friends were going to die anyway, and they were going to die soon, and that he wasn't going to survive, and he knew it. And I think that maybe he just had this thought in that brief moment where he was like, you know what? It's not going to matter if this guy dies. Like, me killing him isn't going to save me. I'm about to die.
The sad thing is, that is almost a beyond human moment, because I see so much of humanity that simply enjoys they almost take pleasure in others' pain. You know, like there's so much of humanity that wouldn't care at that last moment. They could realize, oh, if this other person dies, it's not going to make anything any better. Oh, well, fuck them. You know what I mean? Like, that to me is like almost the human response, versus like his response to it is almost like elevated beyond humanity.
Is it Schadenfreude or something? It's like a German word that means we think it's kind of amusing when someone gets hurt.
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
Why you laugh when a male gets hit in the groin? Like,
yes, yeah.
I think I'm sure I butchered the pronunciation, but like,
I think that there's that. There's like the amusement factor, but then there's some people that literally take pleasure in it. When it's like, you know, when it's the enemy, you know, like when you view someone as the other and they're in pain or something is bothering them, it's like that to you is just joy. Yeah.
Yeah, because like for the way that they even have a slur they call the replicants skin jobs. Yeah. I'm sure that the replicants have some degree of prejudice or disdain for humans. And, you know, like, and this actually reminds me, like, the whole idea that you're kind of talking about, it makes me think the whole subject of Roy and the near-death thing, that there's some individuals that are like, I hate everything about existence, and I hate the world, and I hate everybody because they've all screwed me over, and I want to die, but I'm going to take as many fucking people with me before I go. Yeah. Like that's like,
the mass shooter mentality, right?
Yeah. Like the mass killers, and that stuff is like appalling. So, but the thing is like a lot of us, like, even, and I don't mean this to sound any kind of way, but one thing that I've noticed about people that I'm in relationships with is that I recognize that when someone's certain point in their cycle is occurring in which they are, you know, shedding lining and such, the period.
Right. I know you're talking about me. You don't have to say someone and beat around the bush. Like, you can say that Ty's on his period. I understand.
I mean, I get that it's fucking miserable, and I understand completely. And I have no idea how the hell I would like be able to handle like feeling fat and unattractive for like a week, or not necessarily fat, but, you know, bloated, like retaining water, having a terrible fucking headache.
Yeah, literally, you know, 25% of the time. Yeah. Like literally.
Yeah. Like possibly my insides like moving in certain ways to squeeze out like this bloody mess that was in the inside of my body. And, you know, but I've dated people that want to inflict their misery on me.
Yeah.
When they're feeling crappy. And then I've dated other people that are much more mature about it. And I can appreciate and understand the kind of discomfort that they're in. And I have no idea what it's like, and I'm not going to fucking pretend to. Yeah. I would never, ever tell a female to suck it up. Like, I'd be like, bro, I get it. Like, I get that you feel like shit, and you know, whatever I can do, let me help.
If there was a pill that could give you the menstrual symptoms so you could feel it, would you take it just to see?
Did you see the video those two comedians did on Mother's Day a while ago?
No. What is that? No.
They put these electrodes on your body that simulate the feeling of childbirth.
Oh, God.
Those guys were screaming for their mothers.
I'm sure. Hilarious. Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah, but yes, to answer your question, fuck yeah. Like, if I could just see what it was like, just so I could really understand.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
But it's like, it's the same thing, like, where I think maybe Roy realized that there was no reason on inflicting his misery on someone else. Because because some people just, when they're miserable, they want everyone else to be miserable, which is like terrible and
but
somewhat immature. But maybe Roy just grew up in a few minutes.
Well, exactly, and that's what I think is so cool, is that's like it's rational to realize that, and it's emotional to want to inflict the pain on others, because it's it's a knee-jerk reaction to the pain you're feeling. So it's like, it's cool to see, like I'm saying, it's almost like like, I mean, yes, of course there are people that would take the rational route too, but it's like, I've just see so much of humanity as the emotional, that it's cool to see that like he was able to transcend that and be more than human, almost, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's I mean, that just goes back to Tyrell's sort of goal of creating the replicants that in a way, like, I think that what I'm understanding of what you're saying is that the replicant proved that it could, maybe, depending upon how we define it, it may be able to be better than a human. And if that's the case, then why kill them for what they are?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, actually, there's a night recently, and I'm looking at the remnants of it on my wall. I killed the fuck out of this centipede. And as I hit the centipede, I actually said to it, like, I'm really sorry, you just had to die because of what you are. Yep.
That's what I say when I kill scavs and Tarkov. That is exactly what, like, I feel the exact, yep, I know what you're saying.
But it's like, it's unfortunate because, and after that, there's like a few of my colleagues at work were freaking out because there were stink bugs near the front entrance. And they were like, kill that motherfucker. And I was like, y'all, let me demonstrate. I fucking hate bugs. So I took a latex glove and put it on, got some tissue, and I grabbed it and I threw it outside. And I came back and I said, they don't need to die just because of who they are. Or because of what they are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just a weird moment for me. But there is one thing I wanted to mention. I don't know if it really fits into themes, but I feel like echoey rooms are a theme in this movie.
There was definitely some sound design. There was a lot of echoey rooms. I will give you that.
And I kind of liked it. I mean, it sort of added like sort of this weird kind of openness, this like almost like lonely feeling about the future. But dude, the way they use light in this movie is so good.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Like the light coming through the blinds in Deckard's apartment, like it's so fucking great. Like the way that they light every single scene adds so much to the way that it looks. And for me, like that to me, like from a cinematography perspective, I think is the biggest triumph of this movie. I do not give a fuck about the visuals. Even in 1982, dude. Did I tell you about when I watched the old Dolph Lundgren He-Man Masters of the Universe movie recently?
Oh God, no.
I thought that was like graphically amazing when I was a kid, and like I watched it with Craig a while ago, and I was like, "This is fucking terrible."
Yeah. Things look a lot worse when you go back to them.
Yeah. So like, I don't really care about the any of the techie sort of like visuals that people talk about then, and maybe it's just because I was born after this movie came out. Yeah. But for me, like, it's the lighting is the thing that pops out to me the most. And I watched this movie this time in a very different way than I ever have before.
How
I was
so?
I was watching it to talk about it, like in this
kind of, yeah, exactly, yeah. So, that is something that I've noticed, that it's like, I actually end up watching each movie twice normally, because it's like I want to watch it one time where I can just be the observer, that like I can sit back and watch a movie, and then I want to watch a time where I'm actually trying to actively take notes and think more about the movie, rather, like, because it is a different experience to just watch a movie rather than trying to actually like review or dissect the movie.
I think I might need to start doing that, because I feel like when I watch it, usually I'll watch it one time and take it apart, and then I'll kind of half watch it in the background a second time.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get it fresh in my mind. And this is a movie where like I watched this immediately before we did the podcast. This is a movie that I wanted to just like watch it right before, so I could have everything kind of right in my mind.
There we go. Okay, yeah, it came back to, it says live, and it has the same counter continuing to count, so I don't think it, interesting. So I'm not sure what we just lost there, but basically what I was saying was, apparently from my reading, the Blade Runner movies and the Alien movies are in the same universe. So I will be looking for next week things that flesh that out a little further. Apparently there's stuff in Blade Runner 2049, and then also in Alien Covenant and Prometheus and stuff like that are supposed to like hint at that. Little Easter eggs.
So Harrison Ford, Ryan Gosling, and Michael Fassbender, and Sigourney Weaver, and fucking Winona Ryder that's just too much sexy for me.
That is quite a bit of sexy.
I can't handle this much sexy in one universe.
That'd be really cool if there ended up actually being like a crossover movie that you somehow like had like a replicant. And so then I wonder,
Fassbender's character is a replicant
basically. Yeah, but it's like, so that's Wayland Industries that is I see. I want to delve into like the building of the shared universe and understand like how they're connected and shit. But
oh my god,
yeah, I think that's kind of cool.
I love all of those except for Alien 2 or Aliens, I guess, was the second one. That one was a little cheesy if you watch it now, but I didn't hate it, but it would have been better. The original, the first Alien is, in my opinion, the best sci-fi horror film ever made. And
I love it.
Maybe Event Horizon maybe is a close second or third.
Oh God, I love Event Horizon. Yeah, that's a great one, man.
It's one of my favorites, actually. So that is insane. Like, because I don't usually get that delve that far into like fan fiction and things like that, and like the universe and trivia and backstory and background and behind the scenes stuff with a lot of movies, that even movies that I really, really love, I don't know that much about them. Like, you just fucked up my entire world just now.
That's that'd be really cool if you like end up watching Blade Runner next time and catching something and it's like, oh shit, that ties into Alien. Like that'd be really cool. Yeah, I love stuff like that. I mean, we've brought it up before. Like, I'm a sucker for the Marvel movies, and one of the things that I like about them the most is creating a shared universe across so many movies like that. I love stuff like that. So whenever like creators do that across multiple different franchises is the right word, but multiple different series they have or stuff like that, I think it's really interesting. So good job, Ridley Scott.
I feel like I just found out I was adopted or something. Like, that's...
Oh, yeah, you're also adopted.
Oh, great.
Your mother and I have been wanting to tell you for a while.
And that will bring us to the end.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yep. So mind blown twice. You ever see the movie Scanners? That scene where that guy's head just goes boom?
I've seen Scanners, but I don't remember any of it. Oh, holy shit. Why can I not picture that movie? It's a really bad movie. It's actually terrible in my opinion, but it's okay. Yes, I do remember this movie. Okay, yes.
There's a scene where the dude's like freaking out, and apparently there's another psychic in the room that makes the guy's head explode. But the special effects for the head explosion are so bad. It looks like someone like threw some cherry cobbler across like the frame.
Yeah,
I feel like that just happened. Like, I feel like my head just blew up. Like, you have just fucked up my world. Like,
in a good way, though.
I gotta watch everything again now.
I'm also just, I'm gonna like rabbit hole it online because there's gonna be like some article I can find that is like, here are all the Easter eggs you've missed that ties Alien to Blade Runner and blah blah. And it's like that's I'm gonna look at that and then watch and look for them. But
I feel like I just have this dumb look on my face that won't go away
for 30 years. So you ready to do favorite line?
Yeah, man. Do you want to do yours first or do I go first?
Okay, so I had two for this week. I'll go first. My favorite line. Well,
okay. To be fair, we are doing two movies in a row that were kind of my choice, so it's not cheating. Go on.
Sometimes, well, what I do is I tend to pick up a backup favorite line in case we end up talking about one of my favorite lines during the course of the episode, which we did this week. Because the original one I picked was the line that it ended with, where it's too bad she won't live, but then again, who does? But since we've already spoke about that, it's like I hate to like use that as my favorite line when it's already something we've touched on. So the backup favorite line that I've actually picked, I picked this because I just think it's a great way of wording an idea that we've all felt this. We've all dealt this with this issue, and I just think it's a funny and great way of wording it. But the line is, nothing is worse than having an itch you can't never scratch.
Fucking Leon, possibly the flattest character in any movie ever.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, that is a true line though, right? Like, I mean, like everyone's felt that. You know what it's like to like, I mean, literally, have you ever had a broken bone and not been able to scratch underneath a cast? Like the actual physical itch you can never scratch?
For all the crazy shit I've done, I've never broken a bone. But I know what you mean. Like, yeah, I got that weird spot on my back. I forgot to mention, he has a one-liner I think is hilarious where he asks him how much longer he has to live, but he says it's longer than Deckard does.
Yes.
He's about to kill him. I actually kind of like that one-liner.
Yeah, that was funny.
So this, for there's something that it's hilarious to me because for some reason I've always remembered this line from this movie because it's so silly, especially like as the movie gets older. And I think that in some ways, this one particular line is one of the most glaring things about the film that didn't age well.
Well, I know like you had this line picked a long time before we even way before. Yeah. So I know you like this line. Yeah.
When we even tentatively planned to possibly do this movie, I was like, I know what line I'm going to say. He said you a Blade Runner.
Yeah. Yeah, that is all right. So there was like in the intro, I mentioned like there's a few scenes that don't age well, and I like when I said that, I was meaning the like when they're hinging on visual effects, but there are a few other scenes that don't age well just simply because of the times changing. But yeah, I think that's one of them.
I'm like nervous sweating about the fact that I even picked that line.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Which is so bad. Like I love taking a movie that's fucking brilliant and taking one line that's just so ridiculous out of it.
Yeah,
because that is so like everything about that is bad. There's just layers of fucked up about the line. It's like George Takei, I'm sure, is probably still angry about that line.
Yeah, I could see that. Oh man. Well guys, that is going to bring us to the end of another episode of the Metacast Movie Show. If you were watching this on YouTube and you enjoyed the discussion, please hit the like button, subscribe to keep up to date with the show, and comment below and tell us how you felt about Blade Runner. If you're further wanting to keep up to date, or you could even join us as a guest on a future episode by joining our Discord with the link in the description right down below. And remember, we'll be live next week on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/TylerTV discussing Blade Runner 2049. So thank you everyone for listening, and I hope you all have a great week.